Hey guys, that was the announcement back on February 11th. We're going to talk about EV battery production once again. Going back to February 11th, the Biden administration, Department of Energy, announcing an additional $3 billion in new funding to support U.S. EV battery manufacturing and recycling. We're happy to have John DeMaio, president of the graphene division for Graphex Group, back on the show once again. We're so happy to have you, John. Welcome. This is exciting news to start things off. Again, going back to the beginning of the month, but it's much needed. Obviously, there's huge demand, which we'll talk about here in a second. But give us your take on what this means for not only the company but this sector in general, because it's much needed funding, as we said.
Much needed funding, and thanks for having me back on the show. I just love the energy level of you guys and the fact that other people talk as fast as I do, so that's great. So yeah, the announcement was well timed and well deserved. It's nice to see momentum building. It's always great to have the political tailwinds behind us. Graphex as a company was already in the process of diversifying our supply chain to bring part of it to the U.S. in an effort to support the proliferation of the EV battery explosion and to bring U.S. jobs and technology back to the U.S. So it was right in line. This announcement was right in line with what we were already in process of doing. So it was great to hear.
Who missed the last visit when you were with us, John? Graphex is a volume producer of spherical graphene and graphite used in the production of EV batteries. Let's focus a little bit on that supply chain, because it's an important issue that we've talked about in the past a lot on this show, in the sense that it's the timelines for production and the timelines for getting some of these batteries to manufacturers so that they can get them in cars, taking much longer than expected. Tell us how the company is working towards shortening that timeline and maybe making things a little bit easier.
You bet. So that's a great question. So we, as a company, we are what we call a specialized midstream processor of graphite for use particularly in electric vehicle batteries. So what that means is we take the raw materials from the mines and process that, micronize it, sphericize it, purify it, and then pitch coat it, which makes it usable for EV batteries. Where the streamlining comes in is that we handle it from end to end. So we take it from the mines and we deliver it to the battery manufacturers. We also hold our own export license. So currently, most of the graphite in the world is being mined in China, right? There are other countries and other mining operations that are developing resources, but for the time being, most of the existing graphite is mined in China, and almost all of it is processed in China, and that includes Graphex. So we have processing facilities in China that we are expanding the production capability there. And then the final processing is what we are moving and kind of decentralizing into places like, we're targeting, previous announcement and on our previous call, we talked about our facility that we're planning in and around Michigan area. And that'll do the final processing, which will then be turned over to the battery manufacturers and the EV car makers. So having that end-to-end control of the supply chain does mitigate some of the supply chain interruption. We have our own export license, as I mentioned. So we have control of it from the mine to the battery. And that gives us, a level of control and hopefully, definitely some ability to mitigate those interruptions.
That graphic we showed there, just a monumental increase in demand for these products. Talk a little bit about where the company is as far as bringing more suppliers into that loop and into that supply chain, as you just mentioned. As we go forward here, more and more of this material is going to be needed.
Yes, and China is again the major repository of graphite, but there are other locations around the world, North America, South America, Africa, where there are mineral deposits that are suitable, for use in EV batteries. And we are in discussion with many of those players. In fact, most of the ones that have mining operations that are either in process, actually, producing, or are, planning for, future, near-term and long-term capabilities. So we need to diversify that supply chain for a number of reasons. It's just good business, for one. It also takes away some of the geopolitical concerns about everything coming from one location, namely China. And it gives us that ability to match the volumes that are needed to match the EV demand, as you mentioned on that curve. It's up and to the right, and keeps growing, almost every day, with further announcements about, more EVs, more gigafactories, et cetera. So we're diversifying that upstream supply chain. We're beefing up our midstream supply chain, which I talked about, the manufacturing capability in China for us right now. And then we're going to diversify the downstream supply chain by relocating or installing new facilities to do that midstream processing closer to the point of use. So it's an upstream, midstream, and downstream expansion and diversification for us, which we think matches what the industry needs.
It's a very exciting time to be in a very exciting sector that, as we said, has seen amazing growth and continues to see amazing growth going forward. John DeMaio, president of the graphene division for Graphex Group, joining us again. We appreciate your time, John. We look forward to another update in the future.
Great. Good to be with you again. Thanks.
Have a great weekend.
Have a great weekend.
Graphex Group, guys. The ticker's at the bottom of the screen there.